The idea of lying on a beach as my main thing just sounds like the worst. It sounds horrible to me. I would go bonkers. I would have to be on serious drugs. I'd be super duper bored. I like high intensity. I came to the conclusion that we should aspire to increase the scope and scale of human consciousness in order to better understand what questions to ask. Really, the only thing THT makes sense is to strive for greater collective enlightenment. I take the position that I'm always to some degree wrong, and the aspiration is to be less wrong. One of the really tough things is figuring out what questions to ask. Once you figure out the question, then the answer is relatively easy. Constantly think about how you could be doing things better. One of the biggest mistakes we made was trying to automate things that are super easy for a person to do, but super hard for a robot to do. They were building a Ferrari for every launch, when it was possible that a Honda Accord might do the trick. Every person in your company is a vector. Your progress is determined by the sum of all vectors. I really like computer games, but then if I made really great computer games, how much effect would that have on the world? Life needs to be more than just solving problems every day. You need to wake up and be excited about the future. I'm not trying to be anyone's savior. I just try to think about the future and not be sad. I think we have a duty to maintain the light of consciousness, to make sure it continues into the future. Don't confuse schooling with education. I didn't go to Harvard, but the people that work for me did. When something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor. It is important to view knowledge as sort of a semantic tree. Make sure you understand the fundamental principles, i.e. the trunk and big branches, before you get into the leaves, details, or there is nothing for them to hang on to. You should take the approach that you're wrong. Your goal is to be less wrong. You get paid in direct proportion to the difficulty of problems you solve. I think it's very important to have a feedback loop, where you're constantly thinking about what you've done and how you could be doing it better. I think it's important to reason from first principles rather than by analogy. The normal way we conduct our lives is we reason by analogy. With analogy, we are doing this because it's like something else that was done, or it is like what other people are doing. With first principles, you boil things down to the most fundamental truths, and then reason up from there. It is possible for ordinary people to choose to be extraordinary. Constantly seek criticism. A well-thought-out critique of whatever you're doing is as valuable as gold. No, I don't ever give up. I'd have to be dead or completely incapacitated. If you need inspiration, don't do it. When something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor. The first step is to establish that something is possible, then probability will occur. I was raised by books, and then my parents. I think it is possible for ordinary people to choose to be extraordinary. If you're not concerned about AI safety, you should be. Vastly more risk than North Korea. Stop being patient and start asking yourself, how do I accomplish my 10-year plan in 6 months? You will probably fail, but you will be a lot further ahead of the person who simply accepted it was going to take 10 years. My children didn't choose to be born, I chose to have children. They owe me nothing, I owe them everything. Science is discovering the essential truths about what exists in the universe. Engineering is about creating things that never existed. If you punish people too much for failure, then they will respond accordingly, and the innovation you will get will be very incrementalist. Nobody's going to try anything bold for fear of getting fired or punished in some way. The risk-reward must be balanced, in favor of making bold moves. Working hard to make useful products and services for your fellow humans is deeply morally good. Education is basically downloading data and algorithms into your brain. Whatever area that you get into, given that, even if you're the best of the best, there's always a chance of failure. So, I think it's important that you really like whatever you're doing. If you don't like it, life is too short. And also, if you like what you are doing, you think about it even when you are not working. It's something your mind drawn to. And if you don't like it, you just really can't make it work, I think. Never chase the next hot thing. Stop trying to chase the wave. You will never catch it. You always, for the most part, find out about that stuff too late. Instead, do what you are really passionate about, what you really love. That will position you before the wave even hits, and you will find out about whatever it is before the wave starts, before it gets hot, and that is how you take advantage. When I was a child, there's one thing I said: I never want to be alone. That's what I would say. There have to be reasons that you get up in the morning and you want to live. Why do you want to live? What's the point? What inspires you? What do you love about the future? One of the really tough things is figuring out what questions to ask. Once you figure out the question, then the answer is relatively easy. When something is important enough, you should try even if the probable outcome is failure. If the rules are such that you can't make progress, then you have to fight the rules. I think that's the single best piece of advice. Constantly think about how you could be doing things better and questioning yourself. When something is important enough, you do it, even if the odds are not in your favor.